All right, guys, we are live. This wasn't planned. Both me and Ben have our Sherdog hats on. I don't know how old Ben's is, but mine is like legit like 15 years old. I've had this hat for like 15 years.
Mine's like 3 years old. You're super old school, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Like this hat is the Andre Arlovsky of this show.
You're like the Jim Miller because yours still rules.
my,
Like if it had a huge hole in it and like the rim was busted, then it would be the Andre Arlovsky.
my dog chewed on it and stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we're here recapping UFC Vegas 74, UFC Cara France versus Albazi, UFC Albazi versus Cara France. I'm your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me as always is the senior editor of Sherdog.com, the great Ben Duffy. Ben, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Pretty interesting card. Some good fights, some wild finishes. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, we have 13 fights to talk about. We had a couple changes since we did our preview. I had a terrible night in my picks. Like, absolutely, might be my worst night ever. How'd you do overall?
I did mediocre. Of the fights we differed on, I ended up on the right side of more of them. Like the one that you got right and I got wrong was Mays versus Arlovsky, but I still didn't have a great night. I went 6-5 on the 11 fights that actually made it to the cage that we both previewed.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. We always talk about how much we like to fly. Oh, actually, obviously, shout out to all the people in the chat. We ask that you be respectful. We try to get as many comments going. I'm surprised how jumping it is, being that it's almost 12:30 here in the East Coast. I was not the most star-studded card, so I didn't expect we to get a lot of chat going. But it's nice to see mostly a lot of the regulars in there. But let's get into it. We had a flyweight matchup. Cara France versus Amir Albazi. The one thing I can say when we have two high-level flyweights is we know it's going to be a fun fight. It's just like it's a rule. It's like what's it? Is it next month or I think it's end of July. Dustin Poirier is going against Justin Gaethje. Yeah. Like I can guarantee this is gonna be a fun fight. Let's guarantee it. It's gonna be a barn burner, incredible fight. It's not gonna be boring. That's how I feel with flyweights. Agree, disagree.
Completely agree. And the funny thing is, this was about as deliberate a fight as you're going to have between two top level flyweights, and it was still dynamite. Like there was a lot of clinching. There was a lot of pretty intricate wrestling that I'm sure we'll get to. It wasn't like Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval just going bananas on each other, and it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's how great that weight class is, and it wasn't that long ago the UFC actually was dropping it. So the main event, we had the guy that's been a staple in division up in the top for a while, Cara France versus kind of the new kid on the block, the guy who's trying to prove that he's one of the top guys, Amir Albazi. I'll say this, regardless of how you scored the fight, we'll get to that in a minute, with Albazi winning a split decision. Albazi obviously proved tonight that he is one of the top flyweights in the world. There's no doubt about it. That said, Ben, what was your score? I saw the chat. It was scores all over the place. What did you score the fight?
I scored it 49-46 for Cara France. I gave Albazi the third round. That was close to a 10-8 round. If not for the reversal and some actual damaging round and pound in the last 45 seconds, if Albazi just cruised out the rest of that round, that was a 10-8 round to me. And I'm totally on board with anybody who gave Albazi the fourth round as well. So even in my book, it was that close to being a draw.
You think some people gave the fourth round to Albazi because he got a takedown?
Yeah, and it shouldn't matter, but he was the guy coming forward constantly, and the striking was pretty close to equal. So I saw plenty of people online giving him the fourth round. I don't have a problem with that either.
Yeah, I'm not going to say it's robbery, but I was a little surprised. I had it 48-47 for Cara France. I'll tell you what rounds I scored. I thought the first round was close. I gave it to Cara France. I thought the second round was close. I gave that to Albazi. Mm-hmm. Albazi's best round was the third, though, based on the criteria of scoring, damage, everything. I mean, that was the round that Cara France sliced up Albazi. I don't think that was enough to steal the round, but it definitely. I totally agree with you said. It clearly took away from being a 10-8 round. Like that. That's no 10-8 round for sure. But and I gave the fourth round to Cara France, and that fifth round I thought is probably the most significant for one person over the other. And it was the fifth round. It was clearly Cara France. So I was sitting pretty confident. The reason why, because like the rounds that Cara France lost, he could have won that. Like if someone gave me a 50-45, it wouldn't be like the worst scorecard, but like it wouldn't shock me because to me, Cara France was competitive in every round. Well, Albazi wasn't. And if we went by pride scoring, and again, obviously that's not how they fight the fight, so I want to put that as a out there. It's to me, it's clearly Cara France or one championship scoring, and definitely because they kind of like weigh the end of the fight more than the beginning. But
Right.
I want to get some technical things. What did you like? What about Albazi makes you feel good moving forward if you're a Albazi fan?
He's a good wrestler, man. Kai Kara France did basically everything right to try to stay on the feet against him. I thought he approached the striking in a smart way to avoid being taken down. I thought his actual takedown defense was very much on point. He'd clearly been training for it, and nonetheless, Albazi got him down several times. He got him in serious trouble on the ground in at least one round. Albazi is legit as a wrestler. I like that. I also like that he has 5-round cardio. You never know what that's going to look like until you see it. And he fought 5 rounds at a high pace. Was not it a lot of it, the time it was not going his way, and that always makes you more tired when somebody else is putting it on you and you have to react. And he was fine. So those are things I liked about Albazi's performance.
Who in the division can out wrestle him?
That's a great question.
Mikhaev, maybe.
Mikhaev, but you know what?
I don't know.
If he and Mikhaev fight, it's going to turn into a wild scramble fest because Mikhaev's wrestling isn't really built to just pancake takedowns and get back up or take people down and settle in their guard. Like he very much wrestles with a mind towards like not even parking in guard, like trying to, get to the back or get the side control immediately. His defensive wrestling, the few times he's had to show it, seems more oriented towards creating scrambles than creating separation. So I think he could hold his own, but I don't think he'd dominate the wrestling against Albazi.
Yeah, I don't either. I was just throwing out a name. I'm not even think he could win the wrestling. I was just throwing a name out there as a possibility. Alan McDonough throws on Pantoja. Obviously, Pantoja is his style. Definitely more of a grappling style, but he's a very underrated wrestler. He gets in those double underhooks. I mean, we just think of a guy he's more of a back taker, kind of wrestles a lot more like Aljamain Sterling than Henry Cejudo or your Josh Kosh, your classic drive through the hip. So, okay. The thing that I like about him is exactly what you said. He's well rounded, and this was a step up in competition, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But what was really impressive to me is like not because we have guys who obviously beat top 5 guys and show that they're a top 5 guy, but to go from a guy that's probably not even top 25 to a top 5, that's such a huge leap. And the moment wasn't too big for him.
Nope. Not a bit.
What's something you don't like about him?
Cara France really, I thought, just kind of outclassed him on the feet. Early in the fight, he had Albazi biting on his feints really badly, and then a lot of the times he actually struck after a couple of feints. He was either catching him clean or Albazi was overreacting to those and jumping 3 feet back. Albazi was not ready for a striker with feints and footwork as good as Kai Kara France.
Yeah, I think another thing that stood out to me is just the lack of output. That was a lot of the differences, especially in the 5th round. But he wasn't matching the output, which is funny because he was the one pressing forward, and he was still losing the volume battle, which usually never looks good. Let's move over to Kara France, and again, I don't think he loses. Obviously, he lost the fight, but I don't think he loses too much shine. Being that what we say about flyweight, it's a fun division, but it isn't the deepest division. 1 or 2 wins and you're back in the mix. What did you like that you saw from Albazi's? Excuse me, from Cara France tonight?
I liked his takedown defense. I liked he'd clearly been drilling it. I mean, he tried inside switches like just instantly. It wasn't okay having to think about what to do in this situation. He went for the switch as soon as Albazi got in on his legs. And I know that like you're not the hugest fan
Oh, I hate
of the
it.
inside switch
Yeah,
in
that's in my negative column.
yeah. uh, but he was trying things that clearly showed he's been working with with probably folk style wrestlers because he also tried to sit out. Uh, he he didn't run out of ideas for takedown defense, whether they were in the middle of the cage or against the fence. Just again, just as well prepared as he possibly could have been to deal with one of the elite wrestlers in the division. And I mean, stuff I liked. He kind of the mirror image of what I said about Albazi. He used feints extremely well, and except for the fact that the decision didn't go his way, I thought it was kind of a clinic on how to win a striking battle while moving backward. Like he was the one giving ground, but he was giving ground in a measured way that kept the distance where he wanted it. And he was using feints. I mean, I think part of Albazi's low striking output was the fact that Cara France had him flinching on his with his feints, especially in the first 2 rounds. Just yeah, I thought it was a sharp performance from Kai Cara France. In my mind, it was enough to win. So it's hard for me to pick at it too much.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I like that he did. One thing he's and this is really just that entire team. They're very intelligent fighters, and some things he was doing that I think I caught on. One, he wasn't pressing the action; he was more getting Albazi coming in because I think he didn't want to over pursue and then have Albazi just drop like lower the level, drop on, and you kind of like you get that like head on collision thing where it's easier for Albazi to get into his hips that way. I like that he kept L stepping a lot, so he's not a stationary target for Albazi to shoot on him. So every time he L step strike, never really kind of harder for Albazi to time. Obviously, that's harder to sustain as the fight goes on, which is probably why Albazi had more success in the third, fourth round getting takedowns. I liked his calf kicks. I think he should have threw more calf kicks because it seemed like every time he threw it, he landed. I do like that he's clearing his hips. So I want to be clear when he's getting takedown, he's clearing his hips. I just think I would rather have him post in like Grammy roll.
Okay.
Because the only thing I don't like about switches is you got to remember in folk style wrestling, you can't lock hands.
Right.
And when you set a switch, the key thing, and a lot of people who don't wrestle probably are saying this is really boring, but when you hit a switch, so your hand, if you don't know what I'm talking about, Cara France kept doing it where he was like reaching, like he was kicking down, he was turning back towards Albazi, and one hand was kind of going in the crotch area. When you hit a switch, you want to hold on to your opponent's other hand, because if you go to high hip over when you clear your legs, if their hand goes into your crotch, they can just switch back.
Mm-hmm.
But when you lock hands like that, it's so much harder to switch and to get up from bottom, which is why there's no locking hands in folk style wrestling. That's why I don't like the switch so much. That's just me. Another thing I really liked that Cara France did in the 5th round, he upped the volume even more. Like he knew, like, okay, this is the last round. I don't have to hold anything back anymore. But it was a very controlled volume increase where he wasn't like sitting on his punches and opening up. I mean, he was showing some power things, but they were straight shots. Wasn't allow Albazi to time something, get underneath him, and drive through his hips and get a takedown. And what I loved, one of my favorite things that Cara France was doing was doubling and tripling the jab. So just staying busy, but giving him something like, I'm hitting you, but also there's this barrier you have to get by to get in on me, which I really liked. So it's so funny how we break down these guys and we talk about the good and the bad, and we both had so much more things to say about Cara France. Let's talk about Albazi. So one thing I do like about him, when he's young, when I first was writing my notes for this, I was writing off like, hey, he lost but there's so many positive takes. One, like I feel like this is like that early career loss when you're stepping up in competition. He doesn't have that. He's well rounded, and I don't think he's ready for Moreno. I don't think he's ready for Pantoja. Brandon Royval would be very interesting. He's such a unique style. How do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you think he's ready for these guys? And because he's getting someone big next.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I already had it figured out, like who I was going to match the winner and the loser with, no matter how it turned out. And they're both, they're probably both top 10 in the UFC. Like Albazi was going to get a step up from me almost no matter what. Like I said, I want to book the winner of this fight with Manel Kopp and the loser with Mateus Nicolau.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay. The situation we have at flyweight where it seems like it's absurd when I was thinking about it, when I was listening to him during the week of media and him saying like, yeah, I want a title shot next. Like, that's what I want. Like, I win this, I'm going to get a title shot. And it's like, dude, how absurd is that? You're going to get one win over a ranked opponent and you get a title shot. But then when you think about what happened at flyweight for about the last, 2 years, when you have the champion and the challenger fighting each other 4 times in a row with Figueiredo Moreno, what happened is you had all your challengers usually who come to the front line because they weren't getting title shots. They were just beating each other.
Right.
So nobody has a squeaky clean record where it's like, this is the obvious guy after Pantoja. You get this guy like Brandon Royval. I think Brandon Royval is on like a 1-fight winning streak.
Yep.
You got Albazi who's, on a longer winning streak. On merit, you could honestly make an argument for him to win, for a title shot. I'm not doing that. I'm going with Royval. Like Royval, I think should fight the especially because if it's Moreno because there's some history there. So I'm actually gonna go. I'm going a little higher than you because he's right there. I'm doing the loser of Brandon Moreno and Pantoja. Moreno and Pantoja. Wow. I'm going with the loser.
Okay.
The winner.
That works.
I'll put you on the spot. Who's that going to be? I'm just kidding. We'll save that to the pay-per-view. Okay. Cara France. I don't think he drops off much. No. I'm still going to put him against a ranked opponent. And what would you do with him?
I'd give him either Kopp or Nicolau, or hell, if you're feeling saucy, like give him Tim Elliott, who just won tonight.
That's exactly the guy I wrote down. I'm giving him Tim Elliott. That's another guy that is right there. Kopp. If Kopp gets a win, he was going to fight. It looked like we're trying to get a Figueiredo fight that obviously didn't happen because of injuries and everything, and visa stuff. Right? What's going on with Figueiredo again?
Well, it was only like a month ago that he confirmed that he's definitely not moving up to 135. Like I
thought that was a done deal. But isn't there something else going on with him too?
I do not remember.
Yeah, there's something else. So I'm sure someone in the chat will post it. I go with Tim Elliott. So, is there anything else you really want to talk about in the main event? I mean,
no, like it was a real fun fight. I didn't agree with the decision. For what it's worth, MMA decisions for 8, 12, 16, 21 media members scored it for Cara France, 2 for Albazi.
Oh, wow, that's not a good look.
Yeah.
I'm one of the 21, so we'll call it 20-2 because they go to get my opinion. Did you submit your score? Because I know you do.
I did. I actually did tweet at MMA decisions for this one and let him have my score.
Okay. So we'll take both of ours out. Let's do this real quick. And one thing I really respect about our chat is, and I've done it, I've gone the opposite side on decisions plenty of times. And I have no issue with someone who scored a Albazi. No issue. Just as long as you can back up your logic. Like, that's what I feel. I might disagree that this round I scored for this guy and said that guy. But if you did, we'll give you some love. Like, I don't care if you go against the pack. So right now, anybody who scored it for Albazi, just like raise your hand or say me and we'll post them up on. I know there's been people who's been doing it throughout the chat, but I don't want to go through all the
Yeah, I
comments.
mean, I posted a couple scores early on. There were a couple people who scored it for Albazi, but it seemed like the majority here scored it for Car France as well.
Yeah, and who was the two people who scored it for Albazi on? I mean, if you still have it up.
It was whoever was scoring for Bloody Elbow, and it was Paul Fontaine from the Wrestling Observer.
Okay. All right. So I mean, two respectful people. I mean, Bloody Elbow, it was probably like Zane. What's his last
Yeah,
name?
it's probably Zane Simon.
Zane Simon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's we might disagree on that fight, but he's obviously extremely knowledgeable, very good media member, very good film break. I don't know if it was him. I know he does a lot of scoring for them.
Mhm.
All right, you want to go to the co-main event?
Let's do it.
Alex Caceres took on Daniel Pineda, winning by unanimous decision. I'm going to say this right now: this fight isn't, when we rank all-time greatest fights, it's never going to get brought up. Like, it's not going to be like, on anybody's top 10 list, top 30 list, something that. But I think this will be in, like, you have your hall of fucking awesome, which is meant for guys who don't make the Hall of Fame, but like they're
Pineda
awesome.
is.
I feel like this fight, if you had a category for fights, like UFC Hall of Fame, you
Like a
have
fight wing.
Yeah, if you had like a fight wing of it, like, to me, this fight would be in it because their personalities, their styles, what happened. Pineda, getting hit with liver shots and that drops a freaking elephant, but he keeps going forward. I love at one point he looks at Mark Smith. Mark Smith's doing that, like, I'm staring really dope, like I'm getting in there, seeing how hurt you are, like you can see he's ready to jump in any second now for like a stand-in TKO, and he just like waves him off, like, back up, dude, I'm good. Like, when he clearly wasn't good.
No.
I like Pineda. I like him even more now. Like, what a G.
He is. I don't like picking against local fighters. I don't like picking against fighters I know. I would have loved to be wrong about this one, but at least we got a hell of a fight out of it. And Daniel Pineda did Daniel Pineda things, like losing, getting just hit with a body shot in the final round that just sounded disgusting. And he's still swinging, trying to win that fight in the last 5 seconds. There is no quit in the man. He had Caceres in a world of trouble in the second round.
Yeah.
He's just a dangerous guy. Like, if even no matter how big an underdog he is, you're never comfortable betting against the guy until that fight's over.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I want to focus on Caceres too, because one thing I'll say about him, I think he kind of joined the UFC with a little bit of hype because of the character. The Bruce Leroy was a fun nickname. The big afro, being on the Ultimate Fighter show, being successful there, being one of the bigger personalities, and then the pendulum went way too far, and then he had like losses, and then the pendulum swung. It's like, oh, he's just a journeyman. He's nothing good. But now, I mean, the guy is looking better and better, and I kind of feel like I still have that. He's just a journeyman. This is going to fall through, and it's finally I start looking. I'm like, maybe not, man. Like, he's doing things. He's always been a weak defensive wrestler, but he's more of a guy who he'll get his hips moving, scramble, make it weird, make it tough. But what impressed me is the adjustment he made in this fight, where I had it 1-1 heading into the third, and then he starts going to the body, and to see that adjustment, knowing, and it just completely changed the fight. Because what I expected after watching the end of the second round, I go, okay, Pineda's gonna take him down quickly, and it's gonna be a lot of him being on bottom and Pineda, moving around. And I was feeling pretty good about my Pineda upset pick. And then Caceres, I mean, he's looking better, but he hits harder than he ever has, which was never his game. He was always like a point karate fighter. That's not his game. Like, he's power hitting now. He shows some incredible submission defense. Like that, Pineda's slick. Pineda's slick on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but that armbar in the first round was insane. It was one that I
thought it was over.
I thought it was too. I thought it was too, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to nominate this for submission of the year because it was how slick. I mean, we've seen armbars, but the way how quick it was. But Caceres showing the toughness to be able to get out. I feel the same way I feel about the main event, where the loser doesn't lose much stock for me. In a sense, they almost gain stock.
I agree in some ways because I said on the preview that Pineda is as dangerous offensively as he's ever been, but as he's moved into his late 30s, he he doesn't have the durability anymore sometimes to get to the point where he can catch somebody. Because his whole game, he's is built around catching his opponent, knocking him out, submitting him, like putting him in peril, like, and he just hasn't been able to weather the firefights to get to that point anymore. Like he did it to Herbert Burns, but since then, he's gotten finished. But Caceres hurt him a couple times, and he was still there right at the very end. He looked really good tonight, man. Like good
Yeah,
performance.
he did. He really did. I want to get to some of the comments. Mr. Jones mentioned that besides all Pineda body getting shut down and keep going, he actually almost dropped him at the very end of the round. I know Craig Allen. Shout out to my boy Craig Allen for whatever his. I'm sorry. It's Craig. I'm not dissing you. It's almost
Fight Night picks.
Fight Night picks. I'm sorry. Yep. It's almost 1 a.m. and I actually got called in this morning for my other job at 4:30 in the morning. So I'm a little lack of sleep. He was trying to argue that despite everything Bruce Leroy did, if you get dropped at the end, you shouldn't win the round. That's a little bit of that boxing mentality where if you get dropped no matter what happened, it's a 10 round for your opponent. But I disagree with him, but I understand the logic. But my point is, like, that's how badass Pineda is, where 1 minute Mark Smith looking at you like, oh, I don't want you get hurt really bad, and me, Mark Smith, looking bad, to dropping Caceres with 5 seconds left in the fight. Like, another comment, Skynet talking about Skynet always has the greatest comments, talking about Bruce Leroy with that yoga flexibility. Yeah. He's doing the yoga with Ariani like I do. Or Adrian, I'm sorry, yoga with Adrian. That's my girl. That's my girl. Just really fun. I see the chat was tossing out the exact name that I was going to go with for Caceres. I kind of feel like, yeah, he deserves to get a step up in competition and a name. And I was going with Edson Barbosa for Alex Caceres next. It was one of these guys, two veterans, been around a long time, somehow haven't faced each other yet.
I like that one just fine. I had the winner of the Nate Landwehr Dan Ige fight next week.
That was my original one I wrote.
Yeah.
I wrote that originally, and then I saw Edson Barbosa's name. Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, we're doing that preview. I forget about Dan Ige because he was like the most active fighter, then suddenly like extremely unactive, like one extreme to the other.
Yeah, that's.
I'm sure we'll talk about Alex Caceres and Daniel Pineda later on this evening. This is going to be extremely short. As Jim Miller welcomed Jesse Butler into the UFC in 23 seconds.
When Jesse Butler woke up, that mustache was back in style.
Dude, that was it was one of those like holy shit knockouts. And one thing I'll say about Jim Miller that you said this in previews, and I've kind of said the same thing. Jim Miller's one of these guys, the notes don't change. Like, I mean, but the one note that has changed is he's got this old man strength. And that was never Jim Miller's game.
Oh,
that was knocking dudes out. He's got more knockouts in the last year and a half than he had in the first.
He knocked Jesse Butler dead. I mean, he could have walked away after the first shot, the left straight, but he hit him with that accurate uppercut or kind of like scooping hook on the way down, snapped his head back again, and put a fork in Jesse Butler. Wow, what a performance, man!
I think it was Kyle Lahi said, "Does anybody think they could beat Jesse Butler?" No, I don't think I could beat him in a fight, but I'll say this: I think I could last longer than 23 seconds against Jim Miller. I could be completely wrong. But
I mean, things I'll say. Butler's actually a pretty good fighter. He's also usually a featherweight. He's a guy that had been on a 5-fight win streak, including a couple in Fury against pretty good competition. I've seen him fight. He's a guy that I wouldn't have been surprised to see on the Contender Series like this.
Sure.
But
Yeah, he and fast. You said it. He moved up in weight. You take out a guy like Jim Miller, and you take it on. What was it? 2 days notice, three
Yep.
days notice. I mean, I can't imagine a worse UFC debut than he had, and then he gets knocked out on top of it. You
It,
know, yeah, that's tough. Shout out to our boy Sean Sheehan. I know, obviously, he's a colleague here at Sherdog. I think he had one of my favorite tweets where he tweeted. He said, "Joe Rogan still would have found a way to get the Lyme disease reference in there during the 23-second knockout." So nice job. The Irishman was rolling today.
yep. Sean Sheehan rules.
Yeah. Before that, Tim Elliott took on Victor Altamirano. Good for Tim Elliott. I mean, he's going through a lot of shit, as we've all spoken of. That said, I feel like Altamirano fought Tim Elliott the exact way you don't fight Tim Elliott, and that is you don't throw naked leg kicks or naked kicks. I should just say, then to the legs, or you're also going a little higher. You just don't throw like you got to set up kicks against Tim Elliott. You just don't throw high kicks and body kicks, nothing in front of it, because he'll just catch it and then knee bar, knee tap you down and or hit you with, like, get a scramble going. He loves that Peterson. He does the old school youth Peterson. We thought stylistically that this was a really good matchup for Tim Elliott. We were, I know I can't speak for you, but I was obviously a little worried about the mental part of the game. But yeah, he overcome that. I mean, just this was just perfect stylistic matchup for Tim Elliott.
Perfect stylistic matchup. Altamirano played, and as you mentioned, just played right into his hands. Altamirano's best chance of winning against Elliott was to stay at range, use his slight reach advantage, and just kind of peck, and win a distance kickboxing battle. But instead, he gave Elliott every chance to drag this to the ground. And as Alan McDonald, Kyle Lahi pointed out, top control is not normally a Tim Elliott strong point.
No.
Like normally, Tim Elliott's fights look like two cats in a bag.
Yeah.
But no, he made Tim Elliott look like he was from Dagestan. Like just easy takedown, top control special, and did easily enough punishment on top to not get stood up. So yeah, gave Tim Elliott a Tim Elliott fight.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about Tim Elliott is it's like he'll never be a champion or anything like that. I probably shouldn't say never, because obviously it's a possibility, but extremely unlikely. But based on his style, he's always going to be a tough out for anybody. Even when you beat Tim Elliott, you don't trash him.
Yeah.
I mean, think about this. The biggest fight in Tim Elliott's career, he fought for the title, and he won a round against Demetrius Johnson when Demetrius Johnson at the time was the best pound for pound fighter in the entire world.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fight wasn't as close as people remember it, but people trying to make it seem like Tim Elliott gave Demetrius Johnson everything he could handle, but he was up 1-0 against the best guy in the world, and that's what Tim Elliott can do.
He was as competitive with Johnson as anybody up until Johnson lost.
Yeah,
until the second Cejudo fight, Johnson had mopped the floor with most of his challengers.
Yeah, I don't want to go to Demetrius Johnson rant, but if you think about the Demetrius Johnson run, his run in the UFC, when he became the champion to the end of his run, I mean, there was that first Dotson fight that was not the most action-packed, but that was close.
Yeah, because Dotson hurt him early, but then never did.
And then he DJ trashed him in the second fight.
Yep.
There was the Tim Elliott, my order might be off. I'm pretty sure it was Dotson, then the Tim Elliott fight.
Dotson first Cejudo fight, then Elliott.
No, but the first Cejudo fight wasn't close. I'm talking about the second, so when he actually finally lost.
Okay, yeah, but no, like after the second Dotson fight was the first Cejudo fight. Was all it was.
Okay. Okay,
and then Elliott.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and guys, Ben can attest, you're not going to find a bigger Demetrius Johnson fan than me. Like, not a single person in Sherdog. I'm always arguing for Demetrius Johnson. I've been arguing for Demetrius Johnson to be higher in our rankings for 5 years now.
Yeah.
I used to be a lot worse about 4 years ago. It was like every week, like people were like, "All right, shut up about Demetrius Johnson." But um, so I went with Cara France already. Coming off a loss for Elliott. What would you do with Tim Elliott moving forward?
Uh, I like him against someone like Bruno Silva, like on the outside edge of the
Oh,
rankings, but has won a couple fights in a row. Thing about Elliott is he's coming back off over a year off. He's like 35 or 36 to start with, so I don't want him to wait for the winner of anything. I want him to get him in as soon as possible against someone who's ready to go now.
yeah, and just going back to Demetrius Johnson, Ben Cooley's talking about what he's fighting at. Yeah, he's giving up like 20 pounds.
Yeah.
I still think you can make an argument for him to be the best pound for fighter in the world still today, but um, not as quick as Jim Miller, but maybe even worse results is Karine Silva take out Ketlin Souza, another fighter making their UFC debut, losing by first round sub. They said it was a knee bar. I seen a lot of jiu-jitsu people debating what it was, but regardless, Karine Silva had Ketlin's leg twisted it one way, knee goes the opposite way. It looks like we won't see Ketlin Souza. And obviously, I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV. Ben is probably he's more knowledgeable than me. Maybe he can give us some insight, but I don't think we're going to see her for a while.
Yeah, I have the feeling we won't see her for a bit. And there was a bit of a debate in the Sherdog editorial Slack as we went on just over what to call it, because yeah, when you think of a knee bar, the tap comes, the pain or threat of injury comes from hyperextending the knee in the opposite direction it's meant to go. It's just stretching out your hamstrings, stretching out your ligaments. But this thing snapped sideways. Like it seemed to start as like a heel hook, and then all of a sudden the knee just went that way, and I went, ugh.
Yeah. So Ben, it's after midnight, so we can get away with this. We can. You remember back in the day, we're both old enough where after a certain, I think it was like 11 o'clock, they could swear on HBO.
Oh, so we're like the Benny Hill show. We're like showing tits on and like
yeah,
that
like
old, yeah. We say
yeah,
the F word.
it's late enough now where we can do it. You said there was debate in the Sherdog editorial chat. Who won that debate? Like, who was the one who got their choice made?
Ooh, I don't remember, but Jay Petrie, who writes the play-by-play, is usually the tiebreaker there because he's also the guy who heads the Fight Finder and is our record keeper. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to argue with Jay. Like Jay's usually right about those things. So I didn't know if it was like you and Jay saying something else, and Mike Fridley does his like, no, it's Nebo, I'm the boss, and he because that's how Mike, he starts yelling at you. Yeah, real mean kind of rules with an iron fist type guy. Yeah. Obviously, guys, just in case I'm obviously joking. He's extremely nice guy. Yeah, really easy to work for. Hell, he's been letting me do this for years now. So what does that tell you about having an iron fist? Breenso, I thought she looked fantastic. She was a huge favorite, but this is what you need to do when you're a huge favorite. Yes. There's a lot of hype coming at her. She has 16 wins, all 16 wins by stoppage on the feet and on the ground. What do you think of her? Now, it's hard to really get a feel for someone like this when you beat Ketlin Souza, a girl making a UFC debut, not really that hype. One that was kind of, we talked about on the previous show, struggles on the ground. That's kind of the avenue of victory. How do you what's your assessment of Silva? Like, are you in? Are you on the train? Are you checking the train times? Maybe you'll jump on. Like, what's the deal?
I'm in. I think she's probably a future title challenger.
Wow, I mean, you're really in.
Partly because of the state the division's in, where it's becoming a little thin, and she's coming in at the right time because the division is kind of aged and stagnant at top. Like, until Shevchenko got dethroned, she had beaten just about everybody in that top echelon. Now we'll have to see what happens between her and Alexa Grasso. But if Grasso stays the champ, Grasso's got a lot of fresh faces. But there's already been that youth movement that kind of pushed in ahead of Silva about 2 years ago. Your 2 to 4 years ago, your Manon Fiors, your Aaron Blanchfields, they're all ahead of her in line. So
Sure.
Silva could even lose. She could lose her next fight, but there are enough people ahead of her that it's going to be a couple of years anyway. And I think she's going to keep developing. She's young. She's physically gifted. She's a finisher, which is nice. So yeah, I mean, maybe not immediately, but I see future title contender upside in her.
Yeah, I'm taking a little bit of a wait and see, but like I'm I'm checking the times. Like I'm in the neighborhood of the train. Like if I get a window seat or something, I might jump on.
There you go.
So my matchmaking, because of exactly what you said, there's a little bit of weight. Like I'm not going to completely rush her, but I want her to prove herself against a UFC talent. Like here's a fighter that not the highest ranked, but you can beat her. You've proven that you're a UFC caliber fighter. You're tough. Marina Moroz. That's who I'm going with.
I like Marina Moroz. I like that one just fine. Yeah, someone who's above 500 in the UFC, not in the title picture herself, but and tough on the ground. So yeah, I like that one a lot. Andrea Lee would be another one.
Yeah, I was looking at Andrew Lee. Is that who you'd go with?
Lee was my name, but I might even like Moroz better.
Juice X versus recent victor
Mandy.
Ball. Nice job. Nice. I like. I like. Instead of just saying Mandy Bomb, I guess recent victor Mandy Bomb.
If Karine Silva fights Mandy Bomb, they could send Mandy Bomb home in like the overhead compartment of her coaches.
Yeah,
like she's going to go back folded into a small box. Like
John Butterfield's correcting me. That he
John
lost
John Butterfield.
I didn't realize that.
Man,
so nice job, John Butterfield.
Thank you. All right, so Andrea Lee, it is.
No, it might even more reason to fight her now. I mean, I don't know how long. I have to see how long ago that was.
It was a while.
Before that, Abubakar Nurmagomedov took on Alessio Saleski dos Santos. Was this the main card opener, or was this? Yeah, this was the main card opener, right?
Yeah, Santos versus Munoz was the top prelim. So yeah, this was the main card opener.
This was extreme. I mean, we talked about the main event being extremely close. This fight was really close too. I checked MMA decisions. I'm one of the few people who scored it for Nurmagomedov, but I have no issue with anybody. Like to me, it comes down to the second round. First round was Nurmagomedov. Third round was Dos Santos. Second round was really close. Could have went either way. I could probably watch that fight again and easily give it for Dos Santos. Who did you score for?
I scored it for Eliseo Capoeira, or as Buffer said, Eliseo Capybara or whatever. Dude, he had a bad night tonight. Anyway, I won't even.
Bruce Brothers had a bad decade.
It was especially bad this time, dude. He got so many. Dude, your job is to pronounce names right. It's literally your whole job is to say people's names right. He has said Derek Cleary over 100 times, and he still can't say it.
You have a week to, what was it? 13 fights? So you had 26 guys to pronounce. You got to remember like 26 people's names. And like, you got Jim Miller down. You got, you got a couple of one that's pretty easy. Like, you don't have a hard job. Like, obviously, you need talent. Like, I'm not saying he's not talented. You need talent. You need God-given talent. I'm not sure he works on things to make himself have a better voice. And like, I understand that, but like, it's not hard if you have the talent. You know what I mean? It's a free throw for a basketball player, or maybe it's a layup for an NBA player. Like it's pretty.
It's easy. T-ball. You even have a cheat sheet. He is literally reading off a card that he writes on.
Yeah,
he can put cues on how to pronounce names. Again, he has said the name Derek Cleary easily over 100 times. He's one of the busiest UFC judges, and he still says it wrong every time. It's just wild.
I think about it like a baseball player doing soft toss, like maybe not a tee, but like soft toss, where they're like Mike Trout's hitting into a net, like getting his hacks in before the game, and it should be about as many times as Mike Trout misses a soft toss. Like I'm sure he's missed before.
Sure,
like Tom trying to turn this one, but that's how often this should be. But so back to the actual fight. I thought both guys looked bad.
I didn't. Agreed. It was a decent fight. Like it wasn't terrible, but I agree. Like Nurmagomedov, didn't show me anything that indicated he'd be able to make his game plan work on a top 15 welterweight.
No,
And Easy Dos Santos, I mean, he's still tricky. He still hits very hard. He has
sure.
nasty power in all of his individual shots, but he's definitely slow to
He's
tick.
Yeah, he's on the decline, and stylistically, this is the good matchup. Like he's not. That's the thing about Alessio. He's not known for his takedown defense. We talked about it in the previous show, and I'll say this: I think Abubakar's striking might be a little bit better than I've given him credit for, but I think his wrestling is worse than I've given him credit for. And that said, I was never that high in his. I mentioned this every time we talk about him. Like I don't think his wrestling's as good as we think, and I'm glad that Skynet just put this. I mean, he's talking about the whole family. I disagree with the entire family, but it the if he didn't have the last name Nurmagomedov, I don't think there'd be that much excitement about this guy at all.
Agreed.
If his last name was Jones, or well, unless he related to John Jones.
One of us is adopted.
Yeah. Williams. His last name was Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about this fight?
No, I'm ready to not think about that one again.
Okay. Okay. Daniel Santos versus Johnny Munoz Jr. God, this fight was wild, but not in a fun way. Like it was wild because we had spinning and falling and sliding and it's still after dark. It reminded me of like I went to a bachelor party and I won't say whose bachelor party it was, but somehow I ended up in a wrestling singlet and wrestling two strippers in like whipped cream. But that's what it was like. It was like us wrestling each other but just a little bit more striking. If the girls could like punch me and stuff. Which I think they did a couple times.
Yeah, it was a slop fest. I didn't come out of this one feeling a whole lot better about either guy. Just there was a lot of nonsense in this fight, and men's bantamweight is a division that does not brook nonsense.
Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. So I don't feel better about either guy. I don't feel good about Daniel Santos because of his fight IQ. Like how many times do you go to like go into your opponent's guard and fight the exact fight he wants? And I don't feel good about Johnny Munoz simply because he doesn't have talent. He wants to be this grappler off his back, old school Hoist Gracie, 1993, and he's a good grappler. But he is everything that's wrong with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, I obviously I respect Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, it helps start so many things in nice job. He got me that one. Yeah, nice job. But Ben's got some good ones. Ben Cooley's got some good comments here and there. Back to what I was saying. So yeah, like when you have a Damian Maia, when you have a Gelton Almeida, we see the beauty of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Sure.
But then when we have a guy like Johnny Munoz, who's a credentialed tournament grappler, high-level tournament grappler, we see the flaws of it, the lack of wrestling, the counting on a gi for sweeps and things you don't have in MMA. And it looks really ugly.
I thought we were on our way to seeing maybe our first UFC butt scoot in about 10 years. I would not have been surprised if Munoz started butt scooting in the third round.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. Guys, if you're a young person and you're gonna do some jiu-jitsu, like do some wrestling too, please.
It can't hurt.
They go together.
They do.
I'm not talking about the 35-year-old man who wants to lose some weight. No, like you want to just put on the gi and go for it. I'm talking about the one who wants to compete and everything. I'm not talking about young guys like Andre Arlovski who took on Dontel Mays. Andre Arlovski, his chin is finally gone. I'm confident that it's not coming. We said it's gone and it's coming back. It's gone. It's coming back. I'm confident it's finally gone.
You can see on the ottoman behind me, that is a guitar that's completely taken to pieces because I'm doing some work on it. That's Andrei Arlovsky's chin. Like it's been held together with tape for the last 10 years. It's proven surprisingly resilient in its second, third, fourth lives. It's gone because I picked Arlovsky in this one. I was feeling pretty good about it through the first round. I mean, he was outlanding Mays and he was hurting Mays. And Mays was
Oh.
just over swinging and just missing horribly. I was like, I got this one because Arlovsky's already picking Mays apart and Mays is going to get tired first. And then it just takes one, man. It just takes one on Andrei Arlovsky these days. It was sad.
Yeah, I think I'd rather watch you put together that guitar and do like a tutorial on YouTube than watch Andrei Arlovsky fight anymore.
Oh, it's like the beginning of Full Metal Jacket. I'm going to snap that thing together in like 6 minutes.
Oh, you're that good at it?
No, I'm not that good.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, I'm pretty good at it, but it'll take a while.
You know, watching even like when Arlovsky was winning and Mays was doing exactly what Arlovsky wanted, it was still like slow and like one punch landing a minute and Mike Mays is stringing it air. And I was trying to think like what does it remind me of? And you know what it reminds me? You've been stuck on like a one lane highway and granny's in front of you just doing 25 when everybody else does like 60 on this street and you can't get around her. There's no way to get around her. Like that's what it feels like when I watch Andrei Arlovsky fights.
Yeah, completely. When he wins, it's terrible. When he loses, it's sad. As Skynet pointed out, he's been making good money for a long time. I mean, he probably has 12 or 15 fights since the first time somebody said he was shot, and he has made millions of dollars in that time.
Oh no, I think it's been more than 12. I mean, we were saying he was shot when he was.
Yeah, what am I talking about? It's been 12 years since people were
Yeah,
saying.
like I mean, think about when he might be more than that. Think about when he like got knocked out by Fedor. People were saying he was shot then.
And what was that? 20,
That's got to be
2010,
15.
2009, 2010.
That's got to at
Yeah,
least be 15. No, it's before 2010. I'm thinking like
because like Fedor lost to Verdum in 2010s.
yeah, I think like 2008 maybe.
Oh my goodness, you're right. Well,
I
it
well,
was between 2008 and 2010 because 2008 was when he knocked out Sylvia. Was when Fedor knocked out Sylvia. So
I want to say maybe the fight right before that. Maybe the fight right before that.
I thought it was after, but either way, yeah, it's been 15 years that Arlovsky has had the off switch.
Yeah, you have anything to say about Dontel Mays? Like, I don't feel good about the guy. He looked terrible. Just landing one punch.
Because it's John Butterfield, I will allow him to defend Dontel Mays. Mays has also fought some monsters. His UFC debut was gone. Agreed. He might be slightly better than we think. I think at best, Dontel Mays is a dude. He's lost. I mean, he's lost to some good guys. The ones he's beaten have been bad. I mean, Arlovsky's his best win in the UFC. Josh Parisian, Roque Martinez, Andrei Arlovsky. Even the 2023 version of Andrei Arlovsky is better than Parisian or Martinez.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's fought some monsters, but I feel like it's like the extras in the Marvel movies. Like you might have fought like the bad guy in the Marvel movies, but like you're just like that. You're like that cop who shows up and puts out his, the guy's got superpowers and you pull out your 9mm and say freeze, and then you get your ass kicked. Like, the Incredible Hulk hits you like 8 blocks. Like that's who Dontel Mays is. Like he's not Captain America showing up,
As long as that's booked far enough out that I can take vacation that week, I'm on board for it.
All right. I had John Butterfield as my listener of the night until you posted that one saying Mays versus Parker Porter. I think the Parker Porter that just fought last time, I think Parker Porter smashes him.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, off the cuff, I'd probably favor Porter.
Yeah, so would I. I would have favored like fatter Porter. But the slim trim Porter, yeah, I definitely like him better. And the only thing worse than talking about going from an Andrei Arlovsky fight is going to a Jin Yu Fry fight as she took on Elise Reed. First of all, there was a lot of scorecards. Like, how'd you score this fight?
I scored the fight for Elise Reed. I gave her, I believe it's rounds 2 and 3. Having said that, yeah, I gave Reed 2 and 3. Jin Fry fought better than I expected her to. She gave herself a decent chance of winning. She actually threw strikes. I
Yeah,
if Fry would do that more often, I think she'd at least be like 500 in the UFC instead of 2 and 5 or whatever she is right now.
yeah. I think what happened with Junior Fry, so she definitely wrestled more, and that was a smart game plan. And then, so I gave her the first round, and I gave Reed the last 2 rounds, and it really comes down to how you score the second round because Junior Fry had a lot of top control at the time, but didn't do much with it. And Reed, in the little bit of time she was on the feet, I thought she did more damage, and damage being the more bigger criteria, or the most important criteria, I should say. Uh, it, what happened to me, why Fry lost that second round, is she still had too much Junior Fry in her. Like I agree that she was trying to do more for like a minute, and then she remembered like I'm Junior Fry, so I'm gonna stay on top, do nothing. It's gonna get back to my feet. I'm gonna throw like one punch, and then Reed's gonna piece me up. Now, I want to say this, like holy exact. I mean, I'm a human being, so I love Laura Sanko like everybody else does, but Laura Sanko in this fight was terrible. Like, holy exaggerate. She was making Elise Reed sound like the greatest striker in history. Like, oh, elite hand speed, and she's so fat. I'm like, yeah, she's a pretty decent boxer, but she made it seem like it was Vitor Belfort when he first showed up on the scene, hitting Scott Ferroso with 87 punches in 10 seconds.
Yeah, it was not that. Elise Reed is an okay
Yeah.
strawweight.
Okay, straight. Like I think she's like a little underrated boxer, but like holy Christ, Laura Sanko made it seem like she was Clarissa Shields showing up over here. Speaking of not showing up, Luan Lacerda took on
Dude,
Jamon
we skipped Malarkey versus Naimov.
Oh, did we? Holy shit!
I mean, it's okay. Malarkey doesn't remember it either, but
we skipped 2 fights. How did I do that? We skipped John Castaneda versus.
It's because, as was pointed out by 30C West, this is Tajik discrimination. Fighters from Tajikistan fought back-to-back fights, and Keith just didn't want to talk about either of them.
Yeah, geez, I'm sorry.
So actually, Keith was that eager to talk about Jin Fry versus Elise Reed.
Yeah, I get that one. Get one that. You know what? If you're like you're down in your dumps, like if you're like if you're at the doctor's and like your doctor diagnoses you with something bad, like, hey Keith, you got shingles, and you're like, oh man, and then like, yeah, I want to check your colon too. Like, tell me that now. Don't tell me that like when I'm happy. I don't, yeah, I apologize for John Castaneda took on Moan Gafarov.
Yeah.
This was a great fight. This
It
was
really
a really
was.
fun fight. I'm gonna say something and tell me why I'm crazy. So Castaneda won, and I definitely scored it for Castaneda. No controversy or anything like that. But I feel better about Gafarov moving forward than I do Castaneda, and I thought Castaneda looked great.
I agree. I would go so far as to say if these guys fought again 6 months from now, I'd probably favor Gafarov.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I feel like Castaneda showed his experience and his intelligence. I mean, like the first round, he was losing the first round, and he stole it by he landed a high kick, dropping Gafarov. Stole that round back, and then the takedown in the third to kind of change how the fight was going. It was mostly a stand-up battle to get a takedown, and kind of almost like it looked like it crushed Gafarov's spirit a little bit. And winning 2-1. But what impressed me, I mean, Gafarov's pace. I mean, get in the pocket and just winging power shots, power combinations. I'm not saying Gafarov will be a top 10 fighter, but I'm just saying like these two guys moving forward. I like Castaneda. I think it was a good showing for him. Yeah, I like Gafarov.
Couple people letting me have it here, saying that they were not as impressed with Gafarov's performance as I was. Oh, they can
Those
be
guys are
right.
wrong. Those guys are wrong. The more surprising one is Tajikistan. It would have been really cool if both Tajikistan fighters won, but the biggest upset of the evening,
Oh,
Jamie Malarkey taking on Mohammed Naimov, and I apologize if I said his name wrong. Naimov won by second round TKO. Naimov taking the fight on days' notice, like took it this week,
yep.
and get a knockoff against someone like Jamie Malarkey, who we like. Like Jamie Malarkey's good.
Yes.
I'll say this. I want to pump the brakes a little bit. Like I saw some people going nuts about Naimov knocking off Malarkey, and I know he moved up a weight class, so he's going to go move back down. So it's like not only did he get a win on up a weight class on days' notice, he's obviously he's going to go back down and more his natural weight class. But let's not forget Malarkey was having his way with. I mean, it was a one-sided affair up to that one punch. I mean, Malarkey was pitching a shutout on him.
He was, and he gave him the one chance he needed because he just came running in, chin way up in the air, hands at his waist, just
Plunked him.
like Pete Sell versus Scott Smith stuff, just like knock me out. And Naimov obliged him. I mean, fair play to him. Like it was silly for him to call out the champion in another division off of that one win, but fantastic. That's gonna look great on his resume.
In fairness, that is his teammate. So there's a little bit to it, but we'll talk. Well, I'm gonna save that stuff for later. But I thought, but I will say this: if you're gonna win like that, like he understood the marketing side. Like called out the wrong person, but I like that. I'm the new like featherweight king. Move out the way, because he beat Jamie Malarkey. But yeah, really, really good win by Naimov. Let's go back to the order I was out. Luan Lacerda taking on Damar Blackshear. I thought Blackshear looked really good.
Yes.
I loved his volume. I love how he controlled the pace, was using pace as a weapon, snuck in some takedowns. And Lacerda, to me, he's a head scratcher because he's so inconsistent, because he looked fantastic against Cody Stamann. I thought he beat Cody Stamann, and Cody Stamann's good.
Yeah.
And then this one, I thought he had terrible fight IQ, kept going for a knee bar that wasn't there. He gassed himself out, was breathing heavy early, late. I was still in the first round, and he was gassed. And we talk about, I think jiu-jitsu altogether, other than Karine Silva, had a bad night. And this is another example of it where, yeah, it's cool to go for knee bars and all that in jiu-jitsu room, but this would happen when you got like 1 second in a man, then you got to bail on it, because then you got a guy like Damar Blackshear punching your face in, caving your face in.
Completely agree. And Blackshear looked great in a way that he really had not in his fights against who was it? It was Youssef Zalal, and I forget the second guy he fought, but in both cases, he was almost the guy more fighting Lacerda's fight, where he never took control of the fight. His offense was more restricted to looking for low percentage finishes. He got tired first and just kind of had the pace put on him. He owned this fight from the beginning, and it was Lacerda who burnt himself out looking for leg locks, was loading up for single haymakers on just a much bigger guy that was good at staying out of his way. Yeah. Fareed Basharat, I think. Thank you, Alan. Yeah, just dynamite performance from Damon Blackshear. I called this one wrong. I think, yeah, you and I both picked Lacerda in this one. And based on how Blackshear had fought up to this point, I thought it was a solid pick, but I was wrong. But I learned something in being wrong. And if Blackshear continues to fight like this going forward, he's going to scare a lot of people because he has outstanding physical tools and individual offensive skills.
Yeah, I think he showed intelligence too. I thought the physical tools were there for Lacerda. You were at the beginning of the fight. Lacerda had a significant speed advantage against Blackshear, who's pretty fast himself.
Yeah.
But then it just, keeping that, it was one of those guys like he just came out the gate too fast and zigged when he should have zagged and make a bunch of poor mistakes, and Blackshear made him pay for it. The opening fight, the PFL Classic, the Felipe Lenz won a unanimous decision over Maxim Grisham. I think this fight was terrible, but I'll say this: it was terrible, but Lenz did what you should do. He was initiating the offensive takedowns, which kind of kept Grisham against the cage, fighting off takedowns, and just completely nullifying his offense. And it was one of those like it seemed I'm winning and I'm winning rounds and I'm not taking any damage and um really really good. I like not a good performance or anything. I'm not saying that, but just smart. Like he put himself like all reward, no risk.
Yeah, completely agreed. I picked Grisham to win this one, but that's because I expected Linz to come out and try to box and Grisham to wrestle and force the clinch. And instead, Linz took the initiative. He tried wrestling. Grisham never really adjusted. I gave the first 2 rounds to Linz. I thought it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't a great fight, but he survives and advances anyway.
Yeah, and Grisham, I'm glad you mentioned this. You're talking about wrestling. There was moments for Grisham. He had double underhooks, deep double underhooks several times. And like I coach, youth wrestling, and I'm in the wrestling room like at least twice a week. I mean, anybody who's ever watched the show knows I'm extremely passionate about wrestling, and I would like not yell, but like I yell at kids a little bit. Like they get an underhook and they don't use it. Like they're practicing to get an underhook, and I'm like, dude, you fight all the way to the position to get the underhook. You use that thing. That's a down. Yeah, that's a single underhook. You got 2 of them. You get double underhooks. You should be rolling your wrist and bear hugging that guy down, or just stepping through and throwing. Like, what are you doing? I mean, go take a wrestling class from Bo Nickel and learn how to get use those double underhooks. I'm off my soapbox. And I went this far without getting a Bo Nickel reference in yet. So there you guys have it. Let's get to the fun stuff: the Bulls, the Bears, the cut list, the awards. Dude, seriously. Ben Cooley asking me, "Are you excited about?" Yeah, I'm excited about Roma Bravo Young grappling because I think he's going to eventually move over to MMA, which is, you have a 2-time NCAA champion, 3-time finalist. Yeah, I mean, extremely, and he's in his prime. I mean, oh yeah, absolutely. And in his style of wrestling, for you guys who don't know, I think his style of wrestling will really transfer over well because he's a slick, shoot through your hips, drive, very Josh Koscheck. I know that's the guy I always go to, but power double guy. Like I think Roman Bravo Young. But what I'm more excited for is next weekend's Final X. If for those who follow wrestling freestyle to find the the world team, the U.S. national team, and everything. So you got Kyle Snyder versus Jaden Cox again. Yanni Diakomahalis versus Nick Lee. The one really sneaky one, and I know most of you guys probably say "shut up, Keith," but and the one that a lot of people are talking about, Aaron Brooks taking on Olympic gold medalist David Taylor. Like there's some good matchups. So, anyways, do we have the awards, Ben?
We do have the awards. We have a fight of the night and 2 performances of the night. If you're in the chat right now, you probably already know what the awards were because you might have the post-fight presser going or you might be scrolling Twitter. So instead of guessing, just put in the chat whom you would have given those awards to. Fight of the night, 2 performances of the night, and we'll see.
Ben, do you agree with him?
Yeah, I'm totally fine with these.
Okay. Okay. They're unanimously your picks?
Okay. A fight of the night, 100% on board. One of the performances of the night, complete no-brainer. The other one, I'm fine with it, but there are a couple other people that I would have been fine with as well.
All right, so the fight of the night, they might have gave it to the main event, but I actually think it should be Caceres versus Pineda. That fight was just, to me, was insane. The performance night, to me, I think it's, even though he's a big favorite on day's notice, but Jim Miller did fight of the night. I mean, performance of the night. That leaves a couple of them. May's going to knock out over Arlovsky, Green Silva, what she did. But I'm going to go Namath. Another guy taking a fight on super short notice, knocking out a guy like Jamie Malarkey. Sure, it wasn't like a perfect performance. He was getting pieced up before that, but still, like days notice. That's what I'm going with. You want to read out some of the people's picks, and then
I've
you
been
can.
putting them up on the screen. A lot of people calling fight of the night Caceres versus Pineda. For what it's worth, that's what won the award. So
Nice.
good on the
And
UFC because I thought that was the only really, really good fight of the night. Like main event was a good fight.
yeah,
I thought Caceres versus Pineda was wild, and just things felt much more in doubt to me until the end. Good stuff.
agreed. I totally agree.
Pretty much everyone has Miller for one of the performances of the night. And he was the winner of one of the performances of the night. Uh, the other performance of the night went to Muhammad Naimov for his.
Okay. So I had it exactly the way.
Yeah,
But
you had it exactly right.
so you would
Uh,
change now off, and who would you replace him
no,
with?
I actually would have I would have picked Naimov just because I would have felt bad picking Karini Silva for like putting the girl in the cast,
Yeah.
giving her extra money, but it was fantastic.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was really really impressive. So. Yeah, it seemed like everyone's on the same. I mean, a couple of differences, but most people. I'm glad that most people are going with Caceres versus Pineda. I think if Cara France won, it seemed like I think more people might have considered that because I know some people were really upset with the results in the main event. Um, so what do you want to do next? You want to do the Cutlass? You want to do the Bulls and Bears? Dude, seriously?
Um, I am fine with doing the cut list next, but I am not sure that I actually never mind.
I
Yeah,
have
let's do
two.
the cut list.
I have two. We'll throw it out the
I
chat too. We'll throw it out to the chat if anybody, if you guys think it's time to get rid of somebody. The way the cart list works, if both me and Ben have the same person on our list, we give the UFC permission to end their employment and add someone else to the roster instead, replace them with somebody. So I have two.
I definitely have one. I think I only have one.
Okay.
My one is Jin Yu Fry.
We are in agreement. She's lost 3 fights in a row.
She's lost
I
three
would,
fights in a row. She's 2-5 in the UFC. She's 38 years old, and her fights are dreadful.
yeah. Some of the names that people are throwing out, I see Johnny Munoz as one. I did not have him as my other name just because he just won the fight right before that,
Mm-hmm.
which is again I don't think he's a good talent, but to me that at least a couple losses in a row. Same thing with Grisham. People mention Grisham, and I feel the same way. The guy I would cut. This is going to surprise a lot of people. I think it's time. I think it's time to get rid of Andrei Arlovski. 44 years old, back-to-back stoppage losses. To me, I see no positive, all negative. The guy's Andrei Arlovski's fighting on the early prelims on a fight night card in the Apex that isn't even up to the standard of your normal fight night. Like on talent sense, it was actually a pretty decent card, but I mean, on talent wise, it's to me, it's
You know
time to
what?
watch this here.
This right here is
Yes,
the only reason I think the UFC wouldn't cut him because somebody would snap him up. And the UFC does not like to share its toys, even when they are broken.
yeah, no, I know. They definitely would. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. You've heard me say this before, and I'll say it again. Francis Ngannou's deal with the PFL is extremely good for Francis Ngannou. I'm not going to pretend like I'm business savvy enough to say whether it's a good deal for the PFL, but for Francis Ngannou, it's extremely good. I'm glad he got all the money he wanted. I'm glad he got all this stuff. For MMA fans, it's not good. You know?
Uh, Agreed. Like I think the UFC would drop. I mean, might have dropped Arlovsky already, except he has enough residual name value that, dude, if they cut Arlovsky this coming week, they even just did it quietly. Like they waited until like midweek. He's either facing off with Francis Ngannou 2 months from now, if like a teaser for them to fight early next year, or we get Arlovsky versus Fedor 2 on Ryzen Bellator's New Year's Eve card over in
Yeah.
Saitama Super Arena.
Yeah. I I feel like saying to Arlovsky, like, I don't know if UFC has a deal with Belarus
Ooh,
broadcasting, but like get him on the broadcasting team for
Ninja
Belarus.
Kitty. Ninja Kitty just comes in with off the top rope.
Jeez.
Arlovsky versus Tim Sylvia 5 in
Yeah, but
slap
did,
fights.
yeah, but didn't we already see Arlovsky versus Sylvia slap each other in their third fight? All right, let's get to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears are a stock market reference. You've heard me say it before. You want to be on the Bulls list, you don't want to be on the Bears list. We do hockey style 3-2-1. Ben, you want to go positive? You want to go negative?
I wouldn't mind going positive.
Okay. Ben, I'll let you kick it off first.
Okay, positive. Jim Miller. We've said it ad nauseum. He's shockingly relevant at this age in a division that is not normally kind to the elderly, but this newfound power is a real thing and a real problem. Obviously, this was a last minute matchup that Jesse Butler may just turn out not to be UFC material. But you know what? As somebody who picked Jared Gordon in this fight, I was glad I didn't have to see whether I was right or wrong. Number 2, Alex Caceres. You mentioned before, it was easy to write him off as a character, a guy that was just going to stick around the UFC for 30 fights and never really make much serious noise, more of a gimmick than anything. But he's beating good fighters. He's stringing together wins. I think he's won something like 5 out of 6, and he's doing it kind of like Jim Miller with tools that he didn't have 8 years ago. He's got better power now. He fights smarter fights. Against Pineda, he was going against a guy that's really hard to put away and is always extremely dangerous, and he navigated that for 15 minutes. This is a fight that Alex Caceres would not have won 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like Pineda would have finished him with something in the first 8 minutes.
Yep.
Number 1, who can it be but Tim Elliott? He fought for the first time in 15 months. He won easily. On the mic, I was sitting on the edge of my seat. I turned my sound back on. Twitter was going abuzz, and class, restraint, takes the high road. I will allow it. And on top of everything else, obviously he's had a bad year in his personal life. And a good night at the office or a good stretch at the office is not a replacement for misery at home. I speak from experience. I've had times in my life when work was where I went for a refuge from what was going on at home. So I'm not saying it's a good long-term thing, but sometimes it's good to just have a moment of triumph to take your mind off that stuff. Tim Elliott had it tonight. I could not be happier for the guy, and he's rocking a mullet. So I clearly need to update my greatest mullets in MMA list.
Yeah, I had Caceres and Elliott as my top 2 picks, so I'll switch it up. I'm gonna go with Dontel Mays, and like, it wasn't a great showing, but I'll say this: when Dontel Mays retires, he'll always have the name Andre Arlovsky win by knockout on his resume. So adding a former UFC champion to your resume, stock always goes up a little bit. So,
oh yeah,
something he can tell his grandchildren or something one day. My number 2, again, huge favorite, but Karine Silva. I know I'm saying her name, Karine Silva. 16 wins, all by stoppage. 2 wins in the UFC so far, back-to-back first round subs. She got some buzz. Ben is saying, she's going to go down as the greatest female fighter of all time when it's all said and done.
Yep, absolutely.
So there's a lot of buzz on her. And actually, I messed up my order. That those 2 should be ahead. How about Felipe Lenz? He's not a great showing, but the dude's 3-0 at light heavyweight. Like, joke what you want. He's probably like maybe 1 win away from being ranked again. So Felipe Lenz, Bulls. Let's go to the Bears. These are the people who did not have a good night. Stock has gone down. I'm going to throw these 2 together because we put them together on the cut list. But Junior Fry and Andre Arlovsky, 2 people who, one time were major organization title champions. Both, Fry's on a 3-fight losing streak. Arlovsky's on a 2-fight losing streak. Not good for them. My number 2 is actually going to be someone who didn't fight tonight, and that's Jared Gordon. This guy's he's been on a poor run, just some bad luck. He had that fight against Paddy Pimblett where a lot of people thought he won. He doesn't get a decision in that. Has the no contest against Bobby Green where he actually was doing well up to that point. and then was going to fight Jim Miller. That's obviously a huge name. And then gets removed the day, the week of the fight and everything. After, if you listen to him for the weight cutting, he said he was the heaviest he was ever heading into the, when he first got the call and cut all this weight and, trying to get down to weight and so all this stuff, just not a good run for Jared Gordon lately. And my number one, not something we can say often, but how about New Zealand? New Zealand MMA went 0-2 on the night. Jamie Mullarkey getting knocked out and Kai France losing the decision in the main event. Not a good night for New Zealand. It's particularly that team over there. I'm pretty sure City Kickboxing, I think Mullarkey and Kai France are teammates over there. I know Mullarkey. I think they both cross-trained at different gyms too, but overall, not a good night for those guys. Who do you have on yours?
I agreed with all of yours, so I will just add two real quick, and I'm adding them for the same reason. Maxime Grishin and Johnny Munoz Jr. They both lost by decision, and it's not like either of them is on a long losing streak, so they're both in the same bucket. It shouldn't be that bad a thing, but in both cases, they looked like guys that just don't have much to offer their divisions. I was going back and forth in the chat with somebody, and I mentioned that Grishin, it's almost like that Oben St. Preux thing where he's old and he's a huge guy with a big cut to get to 205. So by the time he gets from his walking weight to the scale to the cage, he just doesn't look like he has much left. And then Johnny Munoz Jr., you can be a specialist grappler without being one-dimensional, but he just looked like he didn't have any ideas for Daniel Santos, and that doesn't bode well in a division with a lot of plus athletes and a lot of good wrestlers who are adept at keeping the fight standing if they want to against you. I didn't see anything out of Munoz that makes me think he's going to turn any kind of corner.
Agreed. Let's get to the dude seriously. I got a couple. Do you have any, Ben?
I've got one for sure.
All right, I'll let you go first.
Jamie Mullarkey. You're winning the fight. You know that you're in an almost no-win situation when you're taking on such a late notice opponent because you're the biggest favorite on the card. You're expected to run right through them. Any sign of life they show is going to look like a moral victory to them. You were in control of the fight. You just had to stay controlled. And again, goes charging in, chin up, hands down, hands Naim off. What might have been his only chance to win if that thing went for 15 minutes. Dude, seriously, that's a big step back, and he cannot easily afford that. He got handed a bit of a gift here because he went from being, I think they even mentioned it on the broadcast, he went from being the biggest underdog on the card to the biggest favorite on the card thanks to a change of opponent. Dude, you've got to hold serve when you get that kind of break.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get to some of mine. I'll start with two fighters on the same card, beating unranked fighters and calling for a title shot, as in Alex Caceres and Mohamed Namaev both called out. Sorry, I'm way off. Alex Volkanovski tonight. Dude, seriously, like, come on. This probably should be every single week, but Mincy Betts, she mentioned Andrzej Arlovski shoots hard. First of all, I don't know what that means. I don't know if she meant like he punches.
Are we still talking about MMA?
Yeah. That he punches hard isn't the case because he hasn't had a knockout and since the Nixon administration, or shoots hard, like shoots for takedowns. Like, when was the last time Andrzej Arlovski got a takedown? Like, she's just throwing things throwing things against the wall, see what sticks, just making shit up. Like, dude, seriously. And you already bagged on Bruce Buffer, but I gotta do it again. Bruce Buffer originally forgot to introduce Jamie Mullarkey. Dude, seriously. Like, I saw somebody else also had that one on there. So all right, let's get to the grade. What was your grade for this card?
I'll give it a B-. It had some entertaining fights. It had some shocking finishes. It didn't have too much divisional relevance outside of the top fight and a half. And the pacing, as a couple people mentioned, that was brutal. Just long commercial breaks between all the fights. Yeah, just B- is the best I can do.
Yeah, I went with like I had it like really low. Like I was looking at like a C minus or something like that. But then the last three just finished so strong with a Jim Miller crazy knockout, incredible fight in the co-main event with Caceres and Pineda, and then the main event. Yeah, obviously the most biggest barn burner, but fun technical main event that anytime I'm at the edge of my seat going into round 5, trying to score is always fun. So I go like, yeah, I'll go B minus too. But again, this had a ceiling. It seemed like everybody else is going much harder than we are. A lot of D's in there. I guess we're getting softer as we get older there. So, who is your listener of the night? Always the hardest question.
We had a bunch of great listeners. Obviously, our usual crew was here. I like it when John Butterfield is here early and often. He's a super good dude.
Yeah.
Boss always holding it down. Like I think of him as like our OG of OGs. Uh, we had that one person, I believe it was like Night Kitty or something, who just dropped in with one hilarious comment and then bailed.
Yeah,
but just Skynet for the audacity to accuse me of not drinking enough. I mean, nobody has ever said that to me in my life. Usually it's the other way around. But maybe this carb would have been more fun if I had a few in me. But yeah, Skynet's my listener of the night.
Yeah, and the chat was jamming a lot of the usual ones. Alan McDonald, Ben Cooley, RC Kim always cracks me up. Skynet always cracks me up. Marcus Mustard's in here. Who else? We got 30 C West.
Mm-hmm.
True TRUU. There's a whole bunch.
Yep.
But John Butterfield was when I was leaning that way, but until he threw out that Parker Porter one. But there was a couple of guys that I haven't seen in there as much that I thought was really good. Joe Black was really strong. Mikey M. But I'm gonna go with a guy that was a lot of volume, and it was a lot of. I think I kept posting this stuff on there. I'm gonna go with Mr. Jones. That's gonna be my listener of the night. He's not happy about the judges. Other than that, he wasn't happy about the judges.
Mr. Jones, I mean, like, if we can send you some money to like fix your caps lock key, just let us know where to send it.
He wants us to make sure we notice. So there you guys have it. We've recapped all 13 fights. We believe we do it more in depth than anybody in the entire world. We'll be back. This is a big week. It's a pay-per-view week. UFC 289. Excuse me, 289.
289.
Amanda Nunes versus Irene Aldana title fight, but probably even bigger. Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush in the co-main event. A bunch of other fights in was it Vancouver, right?
It is Vancouver. The UFC returning to Canada.
Yeah, my wife's home country of Canada. The other side, my wife's from New Brunswick. She's the other side of Canada. But we'll be doing a preview show that should be up Monday morning, and we'll be back live next Saturday. And I hope all you guys are here, and you grab a friend and tell them to join in and have some fun. The UFC nights do not end when the main event ends. That only starts the fun. And then we do a recap. So thank you guys for listening. See you guys all next week.